welcome to today's presentation on Microsoft project. Once again, my name is Obalim. I'm a project professional as well as a scheduler. I specialize in project management as well as project planning and control. Okay, for some of us who have subscribed to my video, I want to say a very big thank you. And if you're yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I suggest you humbly do so, because usually I produce some very rich content which possibly is going to be of help or assistance for you, especially in your career or in your dream of becoming a scheduler. All right, so I decided to do this on Microsoft project due to popular demand. First of all, I want to thank everybody who has commented on my previous videos for your kind words. I really appreciate. And I want to quickly do this for Microsoft project users who, one way or the other, would like to plan or schedule using Microsoft project. Microsoft project on its own is actually a very, very simple, easy to use scheduling tool. And as much as possible, it can actually serve as a scheduling tool, and anybody can actually use the Microsoft project. So it doesn't require a couple of technicalities like typically you have in some other scheduling tools like Primavera, and then also some other scheduling tools as it were. So once you launch your Microsoft project, there's a chance you're going to see this particular page. Now, of course, this is more like the welcome page. And if you notice here, you're going to be seeing specific templates. So all of these things you're seeing here are all templates that you can actually use for scheduling or creating your Microsoft project schedule or plan, as the case may be. However, in our own case, we are going to be creating a plan from the scratch. So we're not going to be using any of the templates below. However, there's a chance that for any project at all you want to create, somebody may have done a template for that. So all you simply need to do is you simply go to the search panel and then you search for whatever project you want to create. Say for example, this is a wedding project, so I could simply type wedding in the search box, and Microsoft project, especially if you're using later versions, for example from version 2013 or 2016 as the case may be. So if that's the case, once you do, you're going to see a specific template that matches your request. And then also don't forget, by the right hand side here, you see different categories of templates. These are some very rich templates that can actually help you, especially if you're looking at creating a plan all using a template. All right, so in our own case, because we're going to be creating a fresh plan, so I'm going to be selecting blank projects. A blank project is possibly the first option or the first template you see there. So you simply click on blank project. So the moment you click on blank project, MS Project would open, and then you're going to be seeing this particular interface. Obviously, on my left hand side is the table. The table is the part that looks like a spreadsheet in your normal Excel. And then, of course, on the right hand side, you have the Gantt. So in essence, everything we do here on the table, you're going to see the Gantt chart displayed here in the Gantt area. And then aside from that too, we have the ribbon. So this long stretch is known as the ribbon. That's exactly what you have at this top. And then, of course, the ribbons are now broken down into what we refer to as groups. So what you're seeing here are groups. So I have the view group, there's a clipboard group, there's the font group, there's the schedule group, there's also the task group, then insert group, as well as properties group, and then editing group. So notice that if you click on any of these menus, first of all, I was on the task menu. If I click on any menu like a resource menu, notice that the group changes. If I go to another menu, for example, reports, the group also changes in that particular order. Okay, good. So I'm back to task. Now, within the groups, notice that you see some small icons in the groups, right? So those icons that you have in the groups are known as your commands. Yeah, so these are your commands. Now, notice that some of those icons actually have like a drop-down portion of it. So if you click on the drop-down, it will drop down. So the drop-down simply means that there are also other commands in addition to what you have displayed there. So that's the essence of some of the drop-downs that you're seeing. especially with respect to each of these groups that you have in Microsoft Project. Okay, so we're going to be creating a very simple plan with Microsoft Project. Of course, I'm a very pragmatic person, so in my videos I try as much as possible for us to achieve one thing, especially using the scheduling tools, and that's that by the end of the video you should have been able to create a simple plan that you're going to be using for your project. Also, don't forget that when it comes to scheduling, the rule is you have the KISS principle. That is, keep it simple. Keep it simple. That's exactly what you should also keep looking at, especially when it comes to scheduling. 90% of people who use some of these tools actually use just the basic features. It's only when you want to become only when you want to really dig deep, that's when you probably will begin to talk about the advanced part of this very course. All right, so for me, whenever I want to create my schedule using Microsoft Project, one of the very first things I do is to, first of all, set up my backstage. So to set up my backstage view, I simply go to File. Now, when you go to File, it takes you, when you click on File, it takes you exactly to the backstage. And then, of course, from here, the first thing I will need to do is to save this very project. Okay, so for me to save this project, I simply click on Save As, and then I can save on OneDrive, or I can also save this on my PC, especially if I want it to be in the cloud, so I can access it from any system everywhere, or I can save this in my PC or another place. PC, I click on this PC, double click on this PC, and then I select my desktop, and then I'm going to be saving this as manufacturing facility expansion. Okay, so I've saved it, and then I click on save, so I've saved this on my desktop. Okay, good. Now, aside from that, there are also some other things. So the moment you save it, notice that the title of your project changes as well. There are some other things I may want to configure. So I go back to my backstage view, and then, of course, from my backstage view, I click on options. Options is the last item that you see there. So when I click on options, the options window displays. Okay. All right. So there are a few things I really like to tweak, especially with respect to the options before the commencement of my scheduling. All right. So I go to general. General is the very first item I have there. And then I go to my date format. So in your date format, you can choose the type of date format you prefer. Okay, so typically for us, we usually have day before month, and then of course before week. So that's basically how our calendar appears. And then if that's the case, I'm probably gonna look for something similar to use. So let's say I am going to be selecting this, which pretty works quite well for me. Okay, good. So once that's the case, then I go to the next item there, which is display. Now in the display part, this is where I have the privilege of changing the currency to the relevant country's currency that I want to use. So in this case, I'm from Nigeria, and of course in Nigeria we use the Nigerian Naira, and that's the NGN. So I go to currency, and then I click on the drop down. So it drops down, and you see a list of various currencies there. And then of course I click on NGN. So the moment I click on NGN, notice that the symbol changes to the Naira symbol. That's the Nigerian currency. And then aside from that, you also see exactly how this is going to appear under the placement. If I want to change how it appears, let's say for example you want the amount to come before the symbol, you can choose that, or you want a space between your currency symbol and the amount, you can also choose any of those options that you have there. So the moment you do that, leave it at 2 decimal digits, okay, and then once you're done with that, you have changed your currency. Please understand that sometimes, depending on the version of Microsoft Project you're using, there is a chance that when you click on the drop down, you may not see your country's currency for one reason or the other. So another way you can do this is simply go to the symbols part, delete whatever you have there, and then you type in your country's currency. In this case, NGN for Nigeria, or whatever currency that you want to type it. So whichever works for you is pretty fine. So once you type it in, all you simply need to do is just type NGN in. And then once you've been able to type it in, you just leave it at that. Leave the currency at whatever it was before. Simply enter the symbol that you want to, especially for your currency, and then you're good to go. All right, so the next part is the schedule part. Under the schedule part, I may want to, okay, one key thing I like to do here is I like my default task to be in fixed duration, not in fixed units. So I've changed that to fixed duration. And then also, I would also want my new task to be automatically scheduled instead of manually scheduled. So I simply click on that drop down and then I select auto schedule. All right, so of course, every other detail here is exactly the way I want it. Then another part I love to also change is the save part. Now, under the save part, I can choose auto save every. Let's say I want this scheduling to save automatically every 10 minutes, or let's say I want it to save automatically every 15 minutes. So I simply go check. I simply check this auto save every. And then, of course, I change this to 15 minutes. You can change it to 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on exactly which you prefer. Okay. So once you've done that, this very button is also essential. A prompt before saving. If you, for example, you want Microsoft Project to give you a notification before it saves. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this to 5 minutes. So I'll be able to illustrate what I'm about to show. All right, so okay, let me just change it to 1 minute so that you'll be able to see this. So it says prompt before saving. So if I choose prompt before saving, so let's say anytime Microsoft Project wants to save, it's going to prompt me before it saves. That's exactly what this prompt before saving does. But typically, I like on checking this so that, because sometimes it can usually cause a nuisance. So that's why I love to uncheck this, especially in most cases. But let's just leave it at, okay, so let's just leave this at 10. Yeah, let's leave it at 10. So while we're scheduling, we'll get to a part where if this presentation lasts up to 10 minutes, you get to a part where you're going to see a prompt asking us if we want to automatically save our project. Okay, good. So once that's the case, another part I also like to customize is the advanced portion. One very important part here is undo levels. Undo levels simply means how far backwards can you undo, especially in the course of making changes to your Microsoft project. So usually I like putting this at double the amount. That's the 40 that you have there. So it means that I can go back 40 steps just in case the need arises. Okay, good. So once you've done this, then another very important change you may want to make is from the schedule tab. So show assignments unit at, so I can click on decimal. Especially those who have issues with conversion or changing to percentage decimal, is probably going to simplify your work and make it a lot more better. All right, so once you've been able to do all of this, you simply click on OK. So I've been able to set up key components of my Microsoft project. Again, I go back to my backstage view, and then this time around, I want to populate my project information. So once you click on File again, then click on Info. Info is the very first option you see there. And then by the right-hand side, you're going to see Project Information there. So click on Project Information. It will drop down. And then click on Advanced Properties. So when you click on Advanced Properties, the Advanced Properties window pops up. So you'll see the title of your project, which is what we entered initially. And then subject. So let's say this is a construction project. So I simply type in construction there. And then author is the name of the scheduler. So I simply put in my name. Then manager, you put in the name of the project manager. Okay, so that's sometimes the project manager can be different from the scheduler. So under the project manager, you may have another name, say Mr. Y, but then of course the author, that's the scheduler, is Mr. X. So you put the name of the company, in this case, Ciel Consulting. And then, of course, you put the category you want this to be, then keywords, especially for search purposes. And then if your project has a website or you want this to link to a hyperlink, you can simply put the hyperlink there. And then, of course, once you're done, you click on OK. So I've populated the project information as well. And then I can go back to the front page view for my Microsoft project. Now, another very important part we're going to take a look at before we proceed is what we refer to as the quick access toolbar. That's what you're seeing here at the top. So quick access simply means those icons that you use quite frequently. So you can simply choose to drop them here so that they can be easily accessible. So to do that, I simply click on this drop button. Let's say, for example, I want to have, let's say, print preview. Yeah, print preview. And let's say I also want to add more content here. So I simply click on more commands, and I want to add indent task as well as outdent task. Okay, so let me add those two. And okay, so let me just add these two. So once I'm done, I click on OK. So you notice that all of that has been added. Okay, let me also add I want to also add the link. Yeah, so I have link selected task. Okay, so I also like having that, and then also on link task as well. So so I've added on link task. So I click on OK. All right, so these are icons that typically I use quite frequently. So I've added them to my quick access toolbar so they can be easily accessible. All right, so once you're done with this customizing, and basically this is like setting up your Microsoft project so that you'll be able to use it the best way you can. Of course, when you begin to schedule, you can decide to customize your Microsoft project the best way you possibly can. And the most important thing this does for you is, if not for anything, it helps make this feel like a home. You know how you customize your phone wallpaper to suit your requirement. That's one key thing that this customization does for you, especially as a scheduler. All right, so once you're done with your customization, you simply click on the very first cell in your table, and then the next thing we're going to do is to display our project title on our table. That's exactly what we're going to do. So once you click on the very first cell, make sure you're in the tax tab, then go to your format tab. So once you click on format, it takes you to the format tab. Then in the show stroke hide group, you're going to see project summary task. So check project summary task. So once you check project summary task, you will notice that the project title gets displayed in your table. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. So let me expand this column a bit so that you can see this a lot more better. All right, so you can see my manufacturing facility expansion project. And that's exactly what has displayed here. All right, so the moment we display our project title, the next thing we're going to do is to create our work breakdown structure. So we're going to create a very simple work breakdown structure. But for your Microsoft project, typically it's best you first of all create your work breakdown structure, then create your activities or your task. The exciting thing is that you can feed all of them in your table at once. So your level 1, your level 2, level 3 plans, as well as your level 4 plans, all of that can be fed into your Microsoft project in one stretch. So you don't necessarily need to, go to different windows to be able to do that, like typically is the case with Primavera P6. Okay, so we're going to be creating some work packages. So this project is a 3-phase project. There's the automation system, there's the conveyor system, and then there's also the building system. So we're going to be creating that as well as the work packages under each of those elements. So all I simply need to do here is I click on the next cell under the project title. I go back to my tax tab, and then I go to the insert group, and then I click on summary. So the moment I click on summary, it inserts two spaces for me where I can enter specific items that I want to. Is the first part is new summary task, and then the second part is new task. So new summary task is where you enter your work packages, and then of course new task could be where you enter the activities. So in this case, we're going to be entering the work packages for this particular project. So I have, okay, good. So notice that the prompt, it prompts up asking me if I want to save changes to manufacturing facility expansion project. Like I mentioned before, this was because, remember the part where we talked about the auto save portion every 10 minutes. So that's exactly why this is popping up. So I click on yes. Now, because I don't want this to keep appearing, I go back to my file, I select options, and then I select save, and then I uncheck prompt before saving. I just wanted you to see how it works before I do this. Every 10 minutes is going to save automatically without informing me. I really do not need that information for now. Okay, good. So once I'm done with that, okay, I simply go to where I have new summary task, and then I type in building system, all right, and then I click on enter. So under building system, let's say I have a couple of tasks under building system, which are, I have design, I have procurement, and then I type in foundation. Notice that after typing every item, I hit enter. And then I type in, say, superstructure. I hit enter. Then I also type in finishing. And then I hit on enter. Okay, good. So I've created a work package here. So this is more like the first work package. And then under this work package, I've created some activities, which is exactly what I have here. All right, so I've created the very first part of my, activities. Now I want to also enter another part of my activities. So again, like I did earlier on, I go to the insert group. Don't forget, make sure you're in the task menu. So I go to the insert group, and then I click on summary. So when I do that, it also inserts another, two options for me where I can enter a new summary task as well as a new task. But then if you notice the new summary task here, okay, so I'm going to show something so that I'll be able to illustrate this point. Simply right click on your task name, okay, and then click on insert column. So it's going to insert a column just by the left hand side of that your task name. Then press W on your keyboard. So you select WBS. Okay, good. So notice that my WBS numbering is showing that this is phase 1 of my project, which is exactly what I want. And then of course under it I have specific activities there, 1.1 up until 1.5. great. But then this should be phase 2 of my project. That's the second work package. So this is not 1.6. So notice that the moment I clicked on insert summary, it took this to 1.6, but I want this to be 2. So in order for me to do this, I now need to outdent. So if you go to your schedule group, you're going to see an icon there pointing leftwards, like an arrow pointing leftwards. That's the outdent task. That's also what I added in my quick access toolbar. So I can simply click on outdent either from my quick access or from the schedule group of my task menu. So you select the work package by clicking on it, and then you click on outdent. Okay, so notice that the moment I clicked on outdent, it has changed to 2, which is work package 2, which is exactly what I want because it's on the same level with building system. So I type in the next, which is conveyor system. And then I hit enter, and then I also type in the activities under conveyor system. Let's assume the whole work packages have the same set of activities. Obviously, this might not be the case with your project, but remember, this is just for training and illustration purpose. So I type in the same set of items there: design, and then procurement, foundation, then superstructure, as well as finishing. All right, good. So I've done the second part, and then of course the final work package, which is automation system. Now, there's also another way I can do this instead of using the insert summary like I used to. So I can simply type in the next one, which is the automation system. So I type in automation system. So notice that the moment I typed in automation system, it doesn't seem like this is a summary task. It seems like it's still an activity under conveyor system, and my WBS is showing that this is activity 2.6, but then that's not a problem. So I can go ahead and add all the various elements, that is all the various activities that I want under my automation system. So let's assume I also want design, then procurement, foundation, superstructure, and then finish. Okay, good. So I'm done with the third phase or the third work package of this project. So what I simply do now is I select the automation system, and then I simply click on Outdent. So notice that the moment I do that, it changes to a summary task, giving me that this is phase 2, and then also these are the activities that you have within that very work package. So we've been able to create work packages as well as activities for your Microsoft project. Okay, so once you've been able to do that, then the next thing you're going to do is to now enter the duration for your activities. Obviously, you should have been able to work this out before entering this, so that you'd be able to know exactly what values to enter there. So that's one key thing you should always bear in mind. So let's say the design is going to take me 10 days, and then procurement, let's say, is going to take me 20 days, and then foundation here is going to take me, let's say, another 10 days. Superstructure is going to take me 15 days. So the exciting thing about Microsoft project is you could practically do everything within the table. So notice that I'm doing all my editing within this table, and as I'm doing that, you see that the Gantt chart here is also being displayed to show exactly what I'm entering. Okay, so let's say this design is going to take me 5 days, and then this is also going to take me 3 days, and this is going to take me 4 days, this is going to take me 6 days, and this is going to take me 10 days. Okay, so enter 10, 6, 4, 5, 3, then 8. Okay, whatever. Okay, good. So I've been able to do the durations for this set of tasks. So notice that everything I'm doing here is with respect to the activities. That's the task. Okay, I've not really done. I didn't enter anything on the summary task. That's the work packages. Notice that they get populated automatically. Now, sometimes some persons would be a little bit confused here and asking, okay, so let's say, for example, building system, why is this work package showing 20 days when design is taking 10 days, and then procurement another 20 days, which is like 30 days now, and then foundation another 10 days, which is like 40 days, and then another 15 days, which is like 55 days, and another 5 days, which is like 60 days. So why is building system showing 20 days? All right, so if you take a look at the Gantt pretty explains this. Notice that what we currently have is that all of these activities are assumed to commence on the same day, which is the day that we are scheduling. And then, of course, also, as you're entering the duration, if you've not entered the relationship yet, Microsoft Project simply assumes that all of them are running concurrently. So that's why you're having a 20 days duration here, and then also a 20 days duration for your project. All right, so once you've been able to enter the durations, the next thing that we are going to do now is to now create the dependencies. Notice that you can always expand your table by clicking on the line that divides the table as well as the Gantt. So once you hover your mouse on it, it changes to a double-edged arrow, so you can click and drag to the right. All right, so once you do that, it displays other columns for you. All right, so let's create dependencies. Like I said, Microsoft Project is, very simple, easy to use, friendly tool. So if you want to create the dependencies, let's say, for example, activity. Notice that for the dependencies, we're going to be using this numbering this numbering at your extreme left, that's the one we're going to be using. We're not going to be using the WBS numbers as the case may be. All right, so notice that procurement is activity 3. So let's say procurement, which is activity 3, is dependent on design, which is activity 2. So all I simply need to do is I select both procurement as well as design, and then I click on the link icon. This is the link selected task, which is also what I added here in my quick access toolbar. So I simply click on it. So once I click on it, it creates a relationship, which is exactly what you're seeing now, between these two activities. And then you also see that in the predecessor column is now showing me that activity 3, which is procurement, is dependent on activity 2, which is design. All right, so let's say activity 4, which is foundation, is also dependent on activity 3. So I select foundation. Another way I can simply do this, I choose to understand which number it is dependent on. That is dependent on procurement, and procurement is activity 3. So I can simply come to this cell under the predecessor, and then I enter activity 3. So the moment I do that, if you take a look at watch, what happens, especially with the Gantt. I want to, zoom out on this. Okay, good. So let's watch what happens. So once I've entered this, and then I click on enter, so you notice it creates another, relationship. So let's say superstructure is also dependent on foundation, but has a start-to-start relationship. So I can simply go to that cell for superstructure, and then I select the number for foundation, which is activity 4, and then I type in the relationship type, which is start to start, and then I hit enter. So you notice it creates a start to start relationship. Now, one key thing you need to understand is that once you create any relationship in Microsoft Project, by default, MS Project creates a finish to start relationship. But then if you now want it to be any of those other relationship variants, for example, your start to start, your finish to finish, as well as your start to finish relationship, then you now need to indicate it in that particular cell. All right, so let's say finishing is dependent on superstructure. So I simply I can simply select both finishing and superstructure, just like we did earlier on. Then I click on the link icon, so it creates the relationship. Okay, good. So that's exactly what you're seeing here. Now let's also say you want to link multiple activities. Let's say, for example, under conveyor system, all the activities here have a finish to start relationship. So I can simply select all the activities, and then I click on the link icon. So you notice it creates a relationship among these activities. Let's say this design for conveyor system is dependent on the finishing for the building system. I enter activity 6 here, so which creates that link showing. So once this finishes, this starts as well. Please understand that we're just doing this for illustration purposes. This structure may not be the right, especially when you're doing a construction project, as the case may be. All right, good. So next is the automation system. So for the automation system, let's say the design for automation system is dependent on finishing in the conveyor system. Finishing is activity 12. So I simply enter 12 here. I enter 12, so it creates that relationship. Procurement is dependent on design and has a, let's say, a finish to finish relationship. So if that's the case, I simply click in the cell here, and then I enter 14. 14 is the number for design, and then I put FF. FF shows this is a finish to finish relationship. So if you notice, that's created a finish to finish relationship. And then let's assume let's assume also that activity 16 is dependent on, you can actually link more than one activity. It's dependent on activities 14 and 15. So I can simply enter 14, and then I put a comma, and then I enter 15. So I hit enter. So you notice that this activity 14, this activity 16 has two relationships now. It's dependent on both these as well as dependent on this as well as this as well. That's exactly what has been illustrated. All right, so let's say every other activity here has a finish to start relationship. So I select all of that, and then I click on my link task. Okay, good. So once you've done that, notice that you would have been able to create your relationships. Okay, so notice that once you're able to create your relationships, all of that is illustrated here in your Microsoft project. So notice also that my new tasks are auto scheduled, and that's why you're noticing all of these are automatically scheduled. Okay, so that's exactly what is being illustrated here. So once you're done with the predecessors, then the next thing is to enter your resources. Okay, so we're going to just do a little illustration of how to load resources. Otherwise, it could be a bit more complex. But like I mentioned earlier on, the goal of this very illustration is to get you up and running with Microsoft Project. So we're going to enter some set of resources. So simply go to your resource tab. Okay, there are various ways we can do that. When we go to our resource tab, we can simply click on assign resources, and then of course our assign resource window will pop up. Other than that, you can go to your view and then click on in the resource views group, click on resource sheet. So once you also do that, your resource sheet will also appear, whichever you prefer. So let's say in this particular project, I have a couple of resources who are going to be working on this very project. So let's say I have Obalim who will be working on this project. Microsoft Project has various resource types. So under the resource type, when I click on the drop down, you can see I have work, I have material, I have cost. So one work resource simply refers to the labor resource as well as the non-labor resource. Labor resource is humans, and then non-labor resource refers to equipment or machine. Then material resource are your consumables, things that are used up in the course of your project. And then also cost. Cost basically refers to expenses. So Obalim here is a work resource. Okay, I'm not going to bother about standard rate. Otherwise, I would enter how much Obalim earns per hour. But I want to use another form of estimating, especially with respect to cost. Okay. Then let's also assume I have other resource persons. I have John, I have James, I have Peter, I have Jenny, I have Jessica, and then I have Julie. Okay, good. So these are work resources, and let's say I also have some other resource like material resource. So I have cement, and then sorry, this is cement. I have sand, I have granite. All right, so for the material resource, remember you change the resource type to material, which is exactly what I'm doing in this case. All right, good. So it has changed all of this to material resource. Okay, so remember, like I mentioned earlier on, I'm not going to bother about the standard rate in this very lesson. All right, so once we're done with that, we navigate back to our Gantt chart. Okay, so all you simply need to do is go to your task, and then click on Gantt chart. So it takes you back to your Gantt chart. I can also click on this icon below, which is the Gantt chart icon. It also brings me back to Gantt chart. All right, so to assign the resource, it's pretty straightforward. So under the resource column within the cell, for each of your activities, again, for your activities, not for your summary tasks. So for each of your activities, under the resource column, simply click on this drop down by the side, and you'll see a list of all of those resources that you entered in your resource sheet. So let's say, for example, design is going to be done by Obalim. So I simply check Obalim. And then let's say procurement is going to be done by Julie as well as Jessica. So I check those two resources. And then foundation is going to be done by Peter. And we're going to need sand. We're going to need cement as well as granite. So I choose all of that. Okay, so that's exactly how to assign your resources when it comes to your Microsoft project, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. All right, so notice as I'm doing that, it's also displaying here in my Gantt as the case may be. So all right, so once you're done with allocation of your resources, which is basically what we're doing at this moment, then the next thing we're going to take a look at would be how to assign cost to our the activities that we have in our Microsoft project. That's the next thing we're going to do. So notice that I'm just assigning this arbitrarily, and like I said, this is basically for test purposes. Okay, good. So I've assigned resources to this set of activities, and of course, I'm over and done with the resource assignment. All right, so once you're done with that, then the next thing is for us to enter the cost for these activities. Notice that after the last column, you have an add new column part, so you can simply double click on it. Once you do, it will drop down. Then on your keyboard, press C on your keyboard and select cost. So once you select cost, you notice that the cost column gets populated. And part of the reason why it's quite important, you took the first step of changing the currency, because as you can see now, the currency is appearing exactly in my native currency. So let's say I'm doing a top-down estimating now. That's basically like a lump sum estimate instead of estimating using resources as well as standard rate for my resources. This is also another estimation technique. Okay, so let's say for example, design is going to cost me 50,000. And then procurement is going to cost me 60,000. So depending on the figures for your project, this is exactly where you enter exactly how much each of these items or how much you're estimating you're going to be spending on each of these. That's exactly what you do in this very part. So again, notice that these are arbitrary figures, so you'll know exactly what works for your project. So notice that as you're doing this, Microsoft Project will be calculating the sum total for you, also telling you how much each phase or each work package in your project would cost, which is exactly what we have just done. All right, good. So once you're done with this, you're essentially done with a very simple plan for your Microsoft project with respect to your activities, the relationships, then the resources, as well as your cost, okay? And then the moment you're done with that, let's say we now want to print our report. So you simply go to File, and then you click on Print. So once you do that, you're going to see the print preview. Notice that from the print preview here, it doesn't look like it captures every element, especially in my Gantt. So if that's the case, I can simply go to Page Setup, and then I check Fit To. Okay, so I want to fit everything to one page, and then okay, I can leave this. Okay, let's say I want everything to fall in A4 paper. So I click on OK. So if I do that, so you notice that it fits everything now into one paper. So this is my table, my resources, my predecessors, and then also you see the Gantt chart also displayed there, depending on exactly how you want this to appear. Okay, so once you've done this, you would have been able to create a simple plan. And then of course, don't forget you can print this as a PDF and possibly send to your boss or whoever has asked you to. And then that could be used for whatever purpose or for whatever presentation that you want to make. So I hope this particular illustration has been very helpful for you. Please let me know if there are certain other topics you want me to cover, either with the use of Microsoft Project or Primavera P6. And then also in subsequent lessons, I'm going to be explaining to you how to use the Microsoft Project, especially for much more complex situations or projects, depending on exactly what you want to achieve. All right, I hope this particular video has been very informative for you. Once again, thank you for listening. And if you like the video, please give a thumbs up and then also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget you can connect with me on LinkedIn in case you have any question or any explanation to see. And I'll see you.